Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Today Insider Podcast, joined by my good buddy, the one and only, the editor and publisher of thespun.com, the greatest aggregator of sports and pop culture in the world. I love this guy. Great friend, great buddy, great friend of the show, the one and only Matt Hladek. Hey, Matt.
I know how you doing. That's an intro befitting the end of week one of the NFL season.
Wow, I agree. We got so much to talk about. Let's get right to the Raiders game. I thought the Raiders were very impressive. Now let's first talk about Broncos. I thought Sean Payton did an excellent job. That is not the same Bronco team of last year, or quite frankly, even before Nathaniel Hackett. Russell Wilson did not just look better than last year. He looked better than his last year in Seattle. I thought he was excellent. Their defense was excellent. Thought the Raiders were far from perfect, but they go into that game, Matt, and they had a huge game plan because they didn't know, is he just going to run what he ran against New Orleans, because Sean Payton spent so much time around other teams in his year off. Then they were able to they made some great halftime adjustments, kept them to less than 100 yards, just a couple points in the second half. Raiders got a big road win. It was a win they would not have gotten last year. And you know this, good teams find a way to win games when they're not playing well. The Raiders did not play well, but they found a way to get a big win. And I don't care that they had won the previous six. This wasn't the same team. This was a big deal. Interdivisional rival on the road win. I was impressed, even though it was far from perfect. Your thoughts?
I would agree. I know you touched on it there. Excuse me. You touched on it on Sunday on Twitter. The Raiders didn't play particularly well. You know, they had the Jimmy G red zone interception. They had some costly penalties. They got behind. But the fact that they were able to come back in the fourth quarter and get a win, offense take the lead, defense close it out, and the offense kind of run the game and close out the clock. That's always impressive. That's always a good sign for week one in the NFL, because the difference between teams that are in the playoffs or in the playoff hunt and the teams that are, finishing with 5 or 6 wins and sitting home in January are games like Sunday, where you find a way to win, you find a way to make the player two that swings the game, and that's what the Raiders were able to do. It's something I think they could build on moving forward going into week two. And I think it's definitely an encouraging sign coming off the preseason that they were able to get this win, road win, divisional win in week one. There's not too many other ways to get better ways to get in the win column to start a season.
Yeah, it was very, very impressive. Let's turn our attention to the Bills. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers later, but just the Bills specifically, I was not impressed. I think they're a significantly better team than what they played. And I think the biggest improvement a team makes is between week one and week two. The great Duffy Doherty said that. Now, he was the first to say it, and it's been echoed throughout the annals of coaching since. I very unimpressed with them. Your thoughts on the Bills?
Yeah, and I watched them last night, and I'm thinking to myself that they really didn't look. And listen, I got to give the Jets a lot of credit. The Jets have a legitimately good defense. They have a really tough defensive line. They have a tough rotation of guys, pass rushers that throw at you. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed and Whitehead in the secondary, and that made plays. But the Bills were just sloppy. Josh Allen was the biggest concern because his biggest issue coming into the league has been turnovers. He started to scale back on them in 2020, 2021, but since the start of 2022, it's been an issue again. It's been a problem. Last night, 4 turnovers, and I would say, if not all four, at least 3 of the 4 were pretty much unforced or mistakes of his own doing. You know, dropping the snap and running into your own guy and fumbling the ball there at the end of regulation, give the Jets the lead. A couple of bad picks, including an arm punt, basically, where he probably could have found the receiver open underneath, but he just throws it up for grabs. Those are the things that Josh Allen did his rookie year, his second year, when he was breaking into the league. And if he's going to do them again, the Bills are going to be in some trouble. Now, again, I expect the Bills to play a lot better this week in week two. They're going to be coming home. They are going to have a game under their belts. But and I do think they'll be a playoff team come the end of the year, but this this definitely was a concern if you're a Bills fan, especially because some of the issues that you saw last year appeared to carry over into week one.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's very fascinating. All right, let's turn to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, whether you like Aaron or not, or whether you're a Jet fan or not, I hate to see players get injured. I mean, 3 or 4 plays into the season, and we're going to find out, what the medical is. But I think a lot of people believe it's a torn Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time of us taping, they have not publicly released anything. But man, I felt bad for him. I felt bad for the Jets. But isn't this like the most quintessential Jet thing?
It is, and I thought the environment, watching last night was just incredible, unlike any game I'd seen in the NFL pregame in a while, if ever. I mean, you had the hype of the offseason, you had prime time, you had the anniversary of September 11th, the national anthem, Rodgers running out the flag, crowd chanting, all these different things. And then for him to suffer that injury 4 snaps into the game, 4 snaps into the season, his Jets' career potentially was just had to be so deflating and was like the most stereotypically Jets thing to happen. Now, I have to give them all the credit in the world for battling back. That defense is legit. They pulled out a win. They deserve a lot of credit for the resiliency because you could see right away when they cut to Robert Saleh on the sideline for the in-game coach interview, he looked like he saw a ghost. He knew that injury was serious, and he knew that everything they planned for and worked for in the offseason had now gone up in smoke. And they were still able to kind of regroup and get a W in week one, which is great. But now the hangover kind of sets in because you realize you look at that team if you're a Jets fan and you say, our defense is upper echelon in the NFL. It's without a doubt a playoff caliber defense, potentially championship caliber defense. We have a great young running back in Breece Hall, one of the best receivers in the NFL already in year 2 in Garrett Wilson. We have the pieces to make a deep playoff run. We needed a quarterback. We had the quarterback, and now he's done for the year. Will they be in almost every game the rest of the way? I think so because of their defense. Could they make the playoffs if things break right with Zach Wilson, or if they bring in a veteran backup, veteran guy? Yeah, I think they could. They potentially could because of their defense. But no Rodgers severely limits their ceiling, and I think that's what's got to be so just gut wrenching for Jets fans, a lot of whom I know out in this area on this morning.
Tua Tagovailoa. I'll tell you, this guy, he's had a lot of fans that can't stand. I mean, a lot of people that can't stand him. A lot of them that love him. The guy's a winner.
He certainly is, and I think again, listen, 1 week in the NFL doesn't make your season, especially not week one. But
Right.
I don't know if there's a fan base in the NFL right now that should be feeling more excited or feeling better about themselves than the Miami Dolphins. And the reason is the Dolphins are coming off a playoff berth last year. They had to be feeling like they had a legitimate roster, a legitimate team coming into the season. They go on the road. Tua looks fantastic. Tyreek Hill looks as good as we've ever seen him. They beat the Chargers, who were a playoff team last year. Now, Patriots credit them for battling the Eagles, but they didn't look great, particularly offensively. The Jets, they're going to be, again, they're going to be feisty, but they're not a AFC East contender to win a division without Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. And the Bills did not look good at all. So now you got to be thinking, if you're the Dolphins and you're a Dolphins fan, this division is ours to lose. If we take care of business, and of course, obviously, in the NFL, everything always ultimately comes down to health. You have to think that this is the Dolphins' division to win, without a doubt, because they have the best overall roster of the 4 teams, I think, right now. And I would still take Josh Allen over Tua as a quarterback, but Tua has played excellent. And if Allen's coughing the ball up and Tua stays healthy, the Dolphins, I think, win that division and they can be a threat in the AFC.
I'll tell you, two teams who can't afford a quarterback loss. I mean, obviously the Jets, but Tua and the Dolphins, Raiders and Jimmy G.
No, without a doubt, they need those
You got,
guys.
and listen, Aaron doesn't have a track record of being injured. That's why I'm not including him in this. But you got two teams that a lot rides on who their quarterback is. They're the Raiders and the Dolphins. Would you agree?
Without question, they need those guys. The Raiders need Jimmy G to be healthy to be in the playoff race, and the Dolphins need Tua to be healthy to not just make the playoffs, but be a threat to do some damage.
All right. Last thing from me, the Raiders this week are in West Virginia. We're in West Virginia for practice because they want to be able to be out here in the East, mitigate the time travel and all of that. I think it's a great idea. They did it last year with IMG Academy. It's a growing trend in the NFL. The National Football League's doing this. Your thoughts? What do you think of it?
I think it makes total sense. Listen, they're a West Coast team. They played Mountain Time in week one. They're coming across the country to play on the East Coast in week two. And I think, which is 3 hours behind the time zone that they're used to. I think getting out there as soon as possible and getting your body and getting your team acclimated to it makes the most sense. I also think that you're coming off a really nice road win in week one. This also eliminates the potential distractions you might have at home and really kind of gets that bunker mentality and that business mentality on this trip going to Buffalo. So I think it makes sense. Again, like you said, we're seeing teams do this, whether it's, like the Giants are playing out in Arizona Sunday, and then they're playing 4 days later against San Francisco, so they're staying on the West Coast. Teams may go to London a day or two early to get acclimated to such a drastic time difference. So it is something you're seeing around the league in general. But I think in this instance, it makes total sense for the Raiders to do this. It's smart.
I agree with you. I got to tell you, I like it because the Raiders were they knew very well they didn't play well, but they found a way to win. And I think it gets them away from everybody. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you got the big win. Just go out there. They were locked in the after the game in the locker room. I just think I think it's a good thing for them. All right, prediction: Bills, Raiders, in Buffalo. You know this. There's going to be a lot of wings eaten,
Without a
particularly by
doubt.
me.
And there's going to be a lot of people diving through tables in the tailgates.
So
I
get
think
what do you think, brother?
going into the season, I thought that, we both picked the Raiders to win week one. I thought this was a loss coming into the season. I'm still picking the Bills to win. I think they will play better. I think they're coming home. They'll have the home crowd behind them. Um, I don't know if he'll be active for the game. DeMar Hamlin, he wasn't active last night, but him being there for a regular season game is going to give them a little bit of extra juice. I think the Bills win 27-20, but I will say this. I thought that the Raiders had a slight, a chance to win beforehand. I think their chances are much better, or they should feel like they're much better after watching the Bills on Monday Night Football. Not that they won't improve between week one and week two, but they look like they had some things that can be exploited. And if you're the Raiders, you got to feel like, hey, we're 1-0. We have a chance to make a statement going on the road in week two.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You know, when I pick a game, I've got 10 things that I analyze, and then each of them are worth 1 point. Whoever has the most points, how I predict my winner. I'm not going to make my prediction today. I'm going to do it later in the week, but I am going to tell you going into the season, uh, on my 10 points, that scale has moved with what I saw week one from both teams. Not saying which way it's tilted, but it's going to be interesting. I look forward to doing my report later in the week. Matt, it's always a privilege catching up to you. I'm sorry. You notice I'm a good guy. I didn't bring up your Giants.
Well,
What a
I
colossal
appreciate it.
failure. I saw on social media a guy get up, throw his jersey down, and quit. He said he quit the Giants.
Well, I have a feeling that that guy will be back because that's always seems to be what fans do at that stuff. But I don't blame him for walking out at the way that game was. It was the worst. The Cowboys might have had the most dominant performance of week one. It was either them or San Francisco. And it was the Giants had the worst performance of week one. It was, you got to burn the tape. I mean, there's things obviously you got to learn from and you got to correct, but it was so bad all around that you almost have to kind of try to flush it and just think about starting week 2 in Arizona.
It was the ugliest thing I've seen since the last time I showered with the lights on.
Hey, I'll trust you on that one.
Oh man, it was ugly. I so badly wanted to text you, but I'm too good of a friend. I just couldn't rub your nose in it. I just thought, oh, I wanted to just say to you, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking
Well,
about you.
the one thing I will say is, as bad as it was, and it was terrible, the only good thing about a game like that is you have 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters to settle in and know what's gonna happen, as opposed to getting your heart ripped out at the end. But listen, again, I didn't think the Giants were making the playoffs again this year. I thought they'd take a little step back after kind of getting a lot of breaks in year 1 under Brian Dable and winning a playoff game as a surprise. But I did think they'd play a lot better than they did. And week 1, no one thinks their team's coming out and losing 40-0, even though the Cowboys are very good. So it was definitely a shock, but at least you kind of got it. All right, this game's over. It's 16-0 in the first quarter. Maybe go find something else to do with the rest of your night.
All right, buddy. Have a good one. He is
You
Matt
too.
Haladik from thespun.com, editor and publisher, the best sports aggregating site from sports and pop culture. You got to just put it in your favorites. I read it every morning. Um, I'm Hondo Carpenter, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.